Welcome back to Ben's Book Club. Today we are diving into the book Leadership Alchemy: Essential Truths for Driving Transformational Change. In this explainer, we're going to break down the core concepts of this absolutely fascinating read. It basically challenges everything we think we know about managing teams and driving organizational progress. So get ready, because this is going to fundamentally shift how you look at your next team meeting.
Okay, let's start here. Almost every leader at some point in their career has stared down this exact question. Must we choose between being tough and being kind? I mean, think about your own career for a second. How often have you just bitten your tongue on giving critical feedback, just to keep the peace? Or on the flip side, how often have you pushed so hard for a deadline that you actively damaged a working relationship? The traditional business world often frames this as a total zero-sum game, like you're either the nice manager whose team loves them but constantly misses targets, or you're the demanding boss who hits the numbers but leaves a trail of resentful employees in your wake. Well, today, we're going to completely dismantle that classic false dichotomy.
Section 1. The False Leadership Dilemma.
So most leadership advice out there forces a truly toxic choice. On one side, if you over-index on caring for people at the expense of performance, you basically become a soft, accommodating manager. You get walked all over. That creates a culture of comfort, sure, but also massive, persistent underperformance. On the flip side, if you focus purely on driving performance, you become a hard-nosed dictator. And yeah, you might get short-term results, but you completely burn out the team, destroy the culture, and watch your absolute best talent walk right out the door. We've all seen those exhausted employees crying in their cars before walking into the office, right? That is the very real cost of that right side.
This brings us to a heavy-hitting quote from the author himself that completely shatters that false choice. You aren't choosing between results and relationships. You are using relationships to achieve results. That right there is the foundational thesis of the book. In practice, this means relationships act as the sturdy bridge over which difficult feedback and high expectations can safely travel. If that bridge is weak, the feedback crashes. True transformational change requires doing both simultaneously. It's not an either-or situation, it's an and situation.
Section 2. Enter the Master Alchemist.
To understand how we actually achieve this delicate balance, we really need to understand the mind behind this paradigm shift. Dr. Michael Corvini doesn't come from your traditional corporate desk job. Look at his background. He's a physician executive with over 2 decades of clinical practice in emergency medicine and as a hospitalist. He leads multidisciplinary teams in highly complex, highly regulated healthcare environments. So why does this matter? Well, because in his world, leadership has literal life and death stakes. His tough but caring approach has a very different, deeply grounded texture compared to standard corporate management books that kind of treat change as a simple spreadsheet exercise. When Corvini talks about pressure, he means keeping a patient alive.
And rather than inventing trendy hollow buzzwords or chasing the latest management fads, Corvini roots his methodology in history. He argues that core human leadership truths haven't fundamentally changed in 2,400 years. He actually traces these principles all the way back to Xenophon's Seropaedia, written around 370 BCE. It's actually incredibly reassuring when you think about it. We don't need to constantly reinvent the wheel. We just need to remember and apply what has worked for the most effective leaders across millennia.
The book uses the ancient allegory of alchemy as this brilliant roadmap. Think of your current struggling team or your persistent organizational challenges as base metal. Then you apply the elixir of life, which represents transformational care. Next, you combine it with the philosopher's stone, which is transformational challenge. The ultimate result? You transmute that raw, struggling material into gold, representing a team operating at its absolute highest potential. It takes this mystical language and maps it perfectly to practical, everyday management.
Section 3. High support, high expectations.
So, how do we actually mix these ingredients without causing the whole experiment to blow up in our faces? Let's deconstruct the specific formula. I want you to ask yourself, where does your team sit right now? If you have high care but low challenge, you get comfort without growth. People are happy, sure, but nothing meaningful gets done. If you have low care but high challenge, you get pressure and burnout. People are terrified, exhausted, and desperately looking for the exit. But when you collide high care with high challenge, you unlock true transformational alchemy. Let's break down the two halves of that winning combination. First up, transformational care.
Now, it is absolutely crucial to understand that this care isn't soft, it's not superficial, and it's not just about being nice. It is the deliberate creation of trust, psychological safety, and belonging through genuine, consistent acts of connection. So what does that look like in the modern workplace? It means checking in on an employee's personal well-being when a major project goes sideways, rather than just immediately demanding to know why the deadline was missed. It's treating people like human beings rather than output machines. This care is the absolute foundation that makes people willing to hear hard truths. Next is the counterbalance, transformational challenge. This means maintaining operational discipline, pushing for continuous improvement, and setting absolutely uncompromising performance standards. This is where we really need to emphasize the difference between developmental and punitive leadership. Challenge without care feels punitive. It breeds resentment, it breeds resistance. But with care, people feel pushed because you genuinely believe in their potential. When you combine clear standards and honest coaching with genuine care, the challenge feels entirely developmental.
Section 4, Navigating the Burnout Trap. This brings us to a massively important focus: how to actually drive high performance without burning your people out. High expectations on their own do not cause burnout. Let me say that again because it's a massive shift in perspective. Burnout is caused by high pressure combined with low support. Adding massive, genuine support is the actual cure for burnout. If your team is burning out, your first instinct might be to lower the bar or reduce targets. Don't. Increase your support instead. The trust you build through transformational care just has to be strong enough to handle the extreme pressure of transformational challenge.
Section 5. Reflection over rigid prescription.
So you might be wondering, does a metaphor about ancient alchemy actually work for modern executives? Does this allegorical, reflection-heavy approach translate effectively to a standard corporate office, or does it feel just a little too theoretical? It's certainly a bold move to use a centuries-old metaphor rather than, standard case studies about Silicon Valley tech startups.
Well, you won't find rigid step-by-step checklist here. Instead, it offers guided reflection. It actually respects your intelligence, giving you frameworks to adapt to the messy real-world dynamics of your specific team, rather than taking this didactic, preachy tone filled with rigid prescriptions that might not even apply to your situation. It foregrounds critical thinking and really empowers you to find the exact right balance for your people.
So what is the practical path forward? It basically happens in 4 sequential stages. First, leadership starts internally. You have to reflect on personal transformation before you can transform others. Second, you build the foundation by delivering genuine care. Third, you layer on that rigorous challenge we talked about. And fourth, this powerful combination allows you to shift from merely reacting to daily fires to proactively leading. You finally get out of the weeds and actually start multiplying the talent around you.
Section 6. The takeaway.
As we wrap up this explainer, it's worth noting that this alchemical framework is just the beginning. This is actually book 1 of a broader series exploring timeless leadership metaphors. It's followed by the physics of leadership and the upcoming blue water leadership, which focuses on emotional intelligence. So if this metaphor-driven approach to deep leadership principles resonates with you, there is a much larger map to explore here, giving you even more tools to balance care and challenge.
So we leave you with this question. What if the secret to extraordinary teams isn't choosing between caring and driving results, but mastering both? True leadership is an ongoing process of balancing high support with high expectations to bring out the absolute best in your people. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into leadership alchemy. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode.